Okay. So our next question. So Sue, I'm going to start with you on this one, just since this really kind of leverages your degree. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about why you went to school later in your career to go through there and get a degree in organizational psychology? And then let's start to talk about behaviors and what behaviors do incentive compensation or incentive programs of any sort drive? Maybe with some specific examples you've seen, both good and bad.
Well, it's funny. The idea to get an organizational psychology degree went with, after working for contractors for a number of years, frankly, after working for anybody for a couple of years, when you start to see how things progress, you see whether it's new systems being put in place, whether you see safety doing good or bad, you see poor quality of work or good quality of work, you see new compliance issues come to the table, whether internal or regulatory, external. What you see is, I sat back and started watching the rest of management kind of move around and who rallies and what camp and how things work. And it was very interesting to me to watch how the people in an organization work. The organization itself is pretty simple to throw an org chart together and look at. How do those people interact, and how do the different departments interact, and how does that basically work inside the culture, or actually create the culture of that company? And I had joked for a number of years. I said, man, had I known then what I know now, I would have not only gotten a bachelor's, but I would have gotten, a second bachelor's or some other degree that included, whether it was negotiations or HR or any of those. But I said, what I really need is organizational psychology, right? Just to figure out the rest of the story, right? It's all behind the business. It's what helps that business run, but it's not the industry in which you work. It's how that company runs and how those people inside work together. So, so behavior is very interesting to watch. So many examples come to mind, but let me start with one where when you start talking about good and bad, right, when you're looking at an incentive program, when you've got a good incentive program, the people really have a feeling of loyalty. They're not even sure it's loyalty, but it feels like they're loyal. They feel like they trust the company and that the company is going to do what's right. They really do have a feeling of belonging. They know how they fit in their piece of the world, how the work they do is very connected to the company's mission, and how that personally affects them, as well as how it personally affects everybody around them, right? They don't really want to know just about themselves. They would like to know about the others too. So they want to know how that works. If you've got a program that isn't quite working or is just really not working at all, now, frankly, you've got resentment. You've got resentment brewing in every single area of the company because they do look at it as unfair. They look at it as, oh, well, yeah, these guys are, face it, construction companies are run by engineers. If you're not an engineer, everybody who's not an engineer feels like they don't get to belong to the club because what they bring to the table is not considered as good or as interesting or as altering to the company as the specific work in the field. So it can really drive a lot of things. And the specific, what you see in the field, though, is if you've got a foreman, you have to be very careful that they understand, and again, it should be a multifaceted program, that they understand that focus is good. Focusing on the work that needs to be done and focusing on how to make it better to achieve the goal that reaches, the level of incent that you're looking for, and not that they get so narrow-minded that they are looking at how to get the money or how to get that incentive, kind of looking past all else, right? Can you make those productions, but, okay, you got a guy hurt, but you got it done an hour sooner. So you have to make sure that the trade-offs aren't allowed, right, that those things are calculated in and people understand that. Because let's face it, human nature is if you can find a way that hasn't been outlined that says, hey, watch all these things, you're going to try to find some way that's faster, better, cheaper, and may not look at all of the risks that are associated with it. So there's some risk avoidance, some risk taking that can happen. The other thing that you see is in an individual person, you will see that the person that really gets the incentive program, as Courtney was saying earlier, right, there's this first-year apprentice who's saying, do not put anybody else on our job. We got this. We can do it. We know exactly what our costs are. We know exactly what our productions need to be. It turns, instead of working for the company, right, instead of being a person who shows up every day, you have now basically become a sales rep for that company. You are bragging about how great things are. You're selling the company not just to your leaders and other subs that are working by you, but you're selling your company to the client that's there. You're selling your company to other craft workers, other leaders in other organizations going, hey, I might want to come and work for that particular company because they are so clear that everybody gets it and everybody understands what their part in this is. So it is, I've seen them go very, very well when people get, whether it's a bonus at the end of the year, whether it's that check at the end of the week, and there are high fives and there are flags that are stood up in somebody's crew because they got the highest incentive for the week. And then the bad, where there's actual sabotage of one crew to the other because they've been pitted against each other in a competition as opposed to, competing against a production rate, they're competing against each other. And now you're not helping anybody move forward by pitting them against each other. There's a lot that can happen. There's a lot that needs to be thought through. And every good program needs to think about how people are going to take this and implement it. That's where the behaviors really occur. And leadership just really needs to understand and, again, be very communicative, get out there with communication every day, and just really stress what it is we're all working for and not just one against the other. So, Courtney, I'm sure you've seen a lot of things as well.
I have, and both good and bad, disastrous and amazingly functional and prosperous incentive programs. I kind of boil it down to one of the main things that a great incentive program does. It helps the organization at every level that touches a project, but really at every level, be better planners, right? So you say, well, how does a great incentive program make HR a better planner? Well, there's a direct tie to it because you start to look for those people that you bring on board who are going to align with the vision of the company above, beside, below them, wherever they are, whatever functional group that they're in within the company. And they want to have players on their team that can grab hold of this incentive program, add value to customers, and are going to work like Sue said. If you have a incentive program that creates fractures or silos in the company where you have a bad form of competition, like the example Sue was talking about. Well, what happens is that makes, oftentimes you'll see in the field that it makes a superintendent in the field or a foreman in the field want to hoard the best players, the best craft workers, right? And so that causes trouble across the rest of the foremen who also would love to have the best workers, right? A great incentive program, it will complement your whole training program. The thing that David talked about at the very beginning, what is your craft level, your supervision level, your project management level, type of training programs. So one of our customers that Sue and I were with last week, they've established with their internal company university, they call it, that has coursework for every functional group, whether it's craft workers, supervision, project management, HR, general management, general employee, levels of competency that they want to have, that can be part of your incentive program. That helps us. We'll talk about it a little bit more later, but it really makes your company, when you get those things in alignment, and it's hard to do, but it is possible to do, that really sets your company up for sustainable growth. When you have the best players, you are in the best position. And if those players are pulling in the same direction, they have a common vision above, beside, below them. And for what those other people, and they can tie it to their individual behavior and what's required of the teams around them, so they can support them, not pick at them. Then you really develop culture. I had one customer that had a situation where he went out to their general superintendent went out to a job site to deliver what they call their gain share checks. And so they delivered a gain share check, and the general the superintendent, this happened to be a specialty contractor, the superintendent of the general contractor said, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" Because they have a foreman on the job, and this general superintendent of our client said, "Well, I'm here to deliver our gain share checks." The general superintendent of the GC said, "Well, what in the heck is that?" And so they explained well what it was, how it was built around their incentive program, their production tracking systems, their culture, and all that type of thing, and how they pay it out. And the general contractor's superintendent says, that makes sense why the foreman on my job keeps telling me, "Hey, you're taking money out of my pocket," because that general contractor was changing the schedule, was moving things around, not even in the general contractor's best interest. And that particular GC superintendent said, "This guy has really been helping us stay on track and on schedule because he's thinking about those things." That superintendent told the project manager of that job the same story. The project manager of the GC calls the PM of the specialty contractor and says, "Hey, so-and-so just told me about this incentive program that you have. Would you mind explaining it to me?" So the PM explained it and how it affected the PM at the PM level, not just the craft level of the field. And the PM of the general contractor says, "Wow, that's really interesting. We could really use that. Would you mind if I had our owner talk to your owner?" So think about that dynamic. That's like a grand slam win for everybody, for the customer, for the general who happened to be the general contractor, ultimately, hopefully for that general contractor's customer, the owner, eventually. But if the owner of the GC talks to the owner of the specialty contractor, and they have a heart-to-heart about the good, the bad, the ugly of incentive programs and how they've deployed it. And now this company has deployed a very good, well-defined incentive program that's working great. But that actually cements or helps build the relationship with the general contractor. That GC is going to want to use the specialty contractor because they believe in the competency, and they're going to help the GC achieve their mission of on time, on schedule, on budget, and so on. That makes them look better in the eyes of the owner. That sort of thing doesn't happen by saying we want it to happen. It happens by all these things that Sue was just talking about, really understanding the organizational dynamics, understanding very clearly the behaviors that we want people to have clear in their mind, and the behaviors we want to avoid. We need to identify those just as much as the behaviors we want to incent, right? And eliminate those behaviors, the bad behaviors, as much as we can. Promote the aligned behaviors.
That's an excellent point, and I love how you brought that right back down at the field level and the interaction with the customer. People that go through there and study what a frontline field supervisor does, a foreman, they make 100+ decisions per day. Some of them big, some of them small, but all of them have an impact on the outcome of that project, and you want to go help, create those 100 decisions in the best way possible. And that's the magic. Great stories there.